thing for us to discuss is what should people be thinking about when they're going into agreements? You know, Abbi, you mentioned sometimes people they'll just take it as it's written. But what kind of things should people keep keeping in the front of their mind when they're reading over their contracts and agreements?
Oh, there's so much. It's oh gosh, when you're like discussing what to do with a brand, a lot of people, I know something that a lot of people do is like, they'll be like, okay, I'll do a post and a story and a reel for this much and give them like a bundle price. And I always talk to influencers like, why are we giving out discount prices and package deals to brands with huge amounts of money? Like, you charge for each individual piece of content that you have to create. Even if I have people like, you'll ask me to do a story and they'll ask you how many frames. So it's like, do you want 1 frame? Do you want 2? And it's like a different price for all of them, but some people don't know. And now you've done a whole load of work and talked about it for ages and given this brand a huge amount of promotion that they would have had to pay somebody maybe, like 8 frames for? So things like that people don't realize is individual. How long you have to keep the content up for. Some people want to try and delete the content afterwards. That happens a lot. It's like, actually, no, I have to leave that there for a year, please. Because in the contracts, like, you have to do different things. What else is there? What are they expecting? Like, how quickly are they expecting the content to come back is a different thing. If you need it in a month's time, you can charge like a normal fee. If they need it next week, you add extra. Or it's like making sure you've got late fees at the end of your invoices, so you can go back to the brand and be like, it's this much past the due date, add late fees, send a new contract. There's so many little things that you could add to make sure that you're protected and you're being paid to do a reasonable amount of work and you're being paid for all of the work that you're doing. And usage rights as well, so that your face is not on a billboard and you've got no money for it. So just making sure there's little things like that are added in are, a big deal.
I'd just like to, is this working?
Yeah, it is. You have to kind of start a little bit.
God, I gotta get ready for this. Sorry, I kind of jumped at that because I read like contracts all day, every day. Like today I read 12 contracts. So I'm just like obsessed with contracts, even though it was like my worst, like I hated contract law. I actually hated contract law at uni. And now I do it all day, every day. Isn't that funny? So never say never. Anyway, first of all, you need to think about several things. I'm not gonna number them just yet, we can number them at the end. But I think number one is, you wanna know how you're gonna get paid and how you're going to be paid. So as in, what's the nominal value that you're gonna get paid and what do you need to do to get that money and how they're gonna do it. So that's 3 components, right? They're gonna pay you via bank transfer. Are they paying you from another account in terms of, are they from the US and they need to pay into your UK account? Well, they have US dollars, you have GBP. How are you gonna accept that money? Also, who are they contracting with? Are they contracting with you, the person, or are they contracting with your company? You said a valid point. The first thing I did when I came to this country was register a limited company. And it was the best thing I ever did. And there's reasons for it. I'm not a tax lawyer. But there's lots of reasons for it. And it's also about protection of self, because when you've got a company and you put it under your company, you know, when you're being sued, there's different elements in terms of what you're protected for. There's a bit of a war between you yourself and the company. So thinking about who they're contracting with. The next component that's actually probably the most important thing, actually, I should have said it first, and that is your intellectual property rights and your license grants. 2 different things. What's intellectual property in terms of the definitions, and also the license grants. What are you granting them? What type of license is it? You said it really well. You said it really well as well. Like, you know, where are they putting your face? You need to make sure that there's no elusive terms. Everything needs to be very directly written, that there's no airy-fairy terms, where they can actually use your face in something else because it wasn't explicitly stated in the contract. The term of the agreement, like you said, how long do they have to keep the post up for? Also,
beware of in perpetuity.
Exactly. Yeah. What do they do?
2 words you should avoid.
Exactly. Unless it's an NDA, you want that for an NDA. You're gonna definitely add to this as well, Kush. So I'm not gonna say all of them, but also you need to make sure of, again, the protection piece. What are they doing with your information after you finish? Who actually owns all your content, the photos? Like, are you going to ask them to delete it within 30 days? That's another really key component. The other thing as well, the other thing is a little bit more emotional, I should say. I'm always someone who goes into a little bit more emotional things than just the base transactions, but it's also about what are you worth? We always talk about what are you worth, right? But you need to back yourself up with data. And what I mean by that is, you've got 1 million followers, you've got 500,000 followers, look at your own statistics, look at your leverage, look at your network. That's your net worth. So if someone's coming to you with offering you £1,000 to do something, you can actually push back and say, no, I'm actually worth 1,500. And the reason being is because X, Y, Z. If you back it up with data and metrics and you actually know your stuff, what are they going to say? You can't argue with numbers and facts. So you're not actually going in there with some, I'm this because I'm this person and I'm this name. They don't care about that. They do to a degree, but they want to see the numbers because all of these top executives, they're in their business because they want money. And that's why people are in business, whether we like it or not. So that's another key component that I learned actually just at all the tech companies that I work for. Data. And I think I'll end on that, and Kush, you can definitely add to this topic.
Amazing, thanks Eugénie. Amazing points, especially intellectual property. That is a key critical component. I won't go into it because you already have, but the things that I would add are, if you're an influencer working with a brand, then if you've got a limited company, then you're operating in business, and you're not going to be regarded as an employee or of the brand. However, if you're operating in your own name, there is depending on what level you're integrated with that brand, there is a risk that you could be regarded as an employee of that brand, and that would be bad for the brand because there's tax implications and liability implications for the brand of having an influencer having potential employment rights, etc., or having tax liabilities to deduct tax from payments they're making to the influencer. And vice versa, if you are the individual and you should have been taxed as an employee, but you think you're doing a tax return as a self-employed person, that is something that needs to be clear. The second thing I would say is that if you are an influencer and you're working with a brand, then can you work with other brands? This is a really key point. We talk about value and self-worth. Then it's like, if I work with you, well, can I work with somebody else in a similar or the same sector? Well, if not, then how is that going to affect your business? Do you operate mainly in that particular sector? If so, then that's going to affect you quite a lot. If not, then it maybe not so much. But it's definitely a relevant factor, and it's really important to look at these things in the contracts that you're signing. I think the final thing I would add is compliance with legal requirements for the posts themselves, because the likelihood is the contract is going to say that influencer is responsible for complying with all kinds of regulations with regard to the posts that they make on social media, you need to know what those laws and regulations are. If you don't, then you may fall foul, and that's not going to be good, because you can bet your bottom dollars the brand is going to blame you if something goes wrong. And also the guidelines that the brands dictate for the influencers, you need to make sure you're following them at all times to make sure that you're operating in a compliant manner. And that is only going to increase your worth and your value, because the brand's going to want to continue working with you, and you're also going to attract other brands to want to work with you as well, which is amazing. So those are the things I would probably add.
I was just going to add one more thing. I was going to say, in terms of like fees and getting paid and things like that, registering yourself or having a company, again, could be like the best thing you ever do, just in terms of talking to people with like my kind of job who work with brands. It's kind of like just generally known in the marketing area. If you're independent creator, or if you're managed or backed, or you're behind a company, or you're registered, the amount of difference in how much we pay them is like massive. Just because some people just know, like if it's coming from a company, there may be like agency fees involved, like the VAT aspect and all of that kind of thing. And we just kind of like, it's like, oh, he's a professional person. Okay, more money, and everything kind of goes a little bit smoother, but then, you can kind of negotiate a little bit lower. And for these kind of brands, almost everyone has like their margins, or how much the agency is supposed to make, or how much the brand's supposed to make. So they always will come down a little bit lower with whatever they suggest. So I would like obviously tell every influencer, even if it's by a little bit, always push back, because they almost always will say yes, because there is more than what they're saying. There's never like, oh, we don't have budget. They do. They always do. So always, I'd say literally at least have so that at least they can see that you're the kind of person that will push back and you're not just gonna like grab the opportunity or be super excited. I've literally had scenarios where I've had like maybe £1,000 for someone that I've been like, okay, should be about this much. And they've come and asked for like 50 quid. And I'm like, literally like, wow, like you're so far below how much you should be charging. And depending on which account manager you're talking to, they'll just grab the £50 and like take the rest for like, okay, we've got some extra money to do something else with. Or they'll actually be like, actually, you should get this paid this full amount. And that literally just depends on who you speak to. So always push back on your fees. And if you think it's too much, it's probably not.
And, something I think we should, us, legal nerds or those who've, been in the business, you do know that you can't really cry foul to anyone if you agree to a bad agreement. And, the law of bad bargain, getting people used to the idea that if you don't wisen up and smart enough at the beginning, if your only complaint is that it's not fair and you should have been paid more, then in the example of, for example, Nikki Tutorials, I think she ended up signing something for $1 million that the campaign was worth about $5 million. You're just gonna have to go home and think about your $4 million because there's nothing else you can really do. You don't want to be in that situation. And like Abbi says, if the right account manager might, maybe personally might hit you up and say, by the way, you should bump that up. But think about it, they have a job to do for the company. If the company's got X amount and the account manager is able to execute 10x the amount of campaigns on the same budget, yay for them, but sad for you. So don't let anyone, shaft you by being smart, thinking about your value. And I'm sure everybody's been seeing the conversation about hair braiders on Twitter and stuff like that, right? We're all going back to the auntie salons because, a lot of people are thinking that, Instagram hair braiders and stylists are overcharging. They're charging for, too many things and it's not making sense. One person made a commentary on TikTok that they're charging a lifestyle cost. Now, there's lots of different moral arguments we could go into about that, but think about it. If they're pricing their product based on not only, how much time and effort they put in, but also like they're looking at the overall value. They see that, okay, this is a lifestyle good, a luxury good. And they're not saying that's right or wrong, but that's the way they're thinking about it. So that's how they're pricing. You also need to think about that with yourself. If you are a lifestyle influencer, I think I did the calculations once for side note, I was doing the calculations to figure out how much it would be to keep my hair laid, new drip, always be outside, go on like 3 holidays a year. And then I added it up and I was like, damn, that's crazy. That's a lot of money. So thinking about how much one picture of me would cost if I'm gonna do my hair, do my makeup, put on an outfit for one brand, like we've got to start talking more numbers at this point. Don't be afraid to do that because as you can see, this is commercial business, baby. People are gonna get their money's worth and don't let people get their money's worth at your expense.